Behavioural experiments are the most powerful tool in the CBT toolbox, and they are particularly effective for social anxiety. In my previous videos on social anxiety, you learned how avoidance behaviours reinforce the beliefs you have about yourself and the world around you. You know, things like people don't like me, I always say something stupid, or people are always judging me. No matter how many times you are told that these things are not true, you will still believe that they are. But behavioral experiments can change these harmful beliefs because they work on the part of the brain where these negative beliefs live, the hippocampus. If you watched my previous video, you might remember our friend the hippocampus, who keeps telling his neighbor, the amygdala, to set off the fight or flight response in social situations. This is because he has learned through avoidance behaviors that social interaction is dangerous. So how does a behavioral experiment work? Well, the first thing is to identify some of your negative beliefs about yourself or the world around you. Without a therapist, this can be difficult, but I'll show you an easy way of identifying them. In my last video, I gave some examples of common avoidance behaviors and suggested you make your own list. Take one of these avoidance behaviors that you recognize, or another one of your own, and ask yourself, why do you do it? This will lead you to the belief that you need to challenge with a behavioral experiment. Let's give an example. Camilla never wore trousers to work, and she always kept her jacket buttoned up, no matter how hot it was. This was her avoidance behavior. Why did she do this? Well, it was because she believed she had a horrible figure, and people would call her lumpy, like some horrible girls did when she was in school. Her therapist asked her how strong she believed this from 1 to 10. Camilla said 11. With her therapist, Camilla designed a behavioral experiment to test this belief. She was to go to work in trousers and leave her jacket open all day. The therapist asked her to predict what will happen. She said someone will make a rude or insulting comment, or at very least pull a face. Camilla tried the experiment and wrote down what happened. She wrote, "No one called me fat or lumpy or even frowned. One person actually commented how relaxed I looked today." She thought this odd because at first she felt anything but relaxed, but by the afternoon she did actually feel more relaxed and less self-conscious about what she was wearing. Her therapist asked her to re-rate her belief that she had a terrible figure and that people would insult her. It had dropped to an 8. It was still pretty high, and Camilla had to do a few more experiments, trying different clothes before the number finally came down to a 4. Now she wears whatever she wants and feels a lot more relaxed in work. Let's have a look at another example. Adam's avoidance behavior was standing where he would not be noticed. What was driving this belief? Well, he believed that no one would be interested in talking to him unless it was to make fun of him about how nervous he was. He rated this belief 9 out of 10. With his therapist, he designed an experiment that meant during the coffee break, instead of standing in the corner, he would stand closer to his colleagues. Adam found it hard as he was really nervous, so he joined them just for the last 5 minutes of the coffee break so that it wouldn't be so scary. When one of the group noticed him, he asked how he was and what he had done on the weekend. Adam nervously said he had been to a heavy metal concert. To Adam's surprise, he found out the colleague liked the same band and wanted to know all about it. He told his therapist he found it very nerve-wracking, but his belief that no one would talk to him unless they made fun of him had reduced to a 6. It is important to build on these experiments, and Adam's therapist suggested he spoke more often to his colleague with a common interest and experiment with talking to some others. Here are some more ideas for behavioral experiments. If your avoidance behavior is keeping your hair or your hand over your face to hide blushing, that might be driven by the belief that people will laugh at you if you blush. A useful experiment would be to tie your hair back, keep your hands away from your face, and see if anybody laughs or comments on your blushing. If your avoidance behavior is never answering the phone, it might be caused by the belief that no one wants to talk to you or that you can't make conversation. A useful experiment would be every time the phone rings, make sure it's you that answers it. See if anyone talks to you, or do they just immediately ask for someone else in your household. You may need to do this for a couple of weeks before you get used to it. If your behavior is getting drunk when you go out, that might be driven by the belief that you have to get drunk to hide your anxiety or no one will like you. A good experiment would be to offer to drive your friends on a night out, maybe to somewhere not easily reached by public transport. Of course, never drink and drive. See if they still invite you next time you're going out. There is another type of behavioural experiment called shame experiments, which are similar but a bit more challenging than the ones I have covered here. I have a video on that, which I will embed at the end of this video. Through behavioural experiments, you learn that how others perceive you can be a lot more positive than how you perceive yourself. They can also teach you that although some negative experiences with some rude and judgmental people in the past may have shaped your beliefs, most people are not rude or judgmental. This realization can be extremely empowering for people with social anxiety, and continued use of behavioural experiments combined with avoidance behaviour reduction will lead to positive changes in the hippocampus. These changes mean that the fight or flight response that you experience in social situations will get less and less. These experiments are best carried out with support from someone trained in cognitive behavioural therapy. If you live in England, you can get CBT free through the IAPT scheme. If you don't have access to therapy, there are lots of books on CBT available, and of course I will continue to make CBT-based videos as long as people keep watching them, so please like and share my video. Remember, the key to beating anxiety disorders is knowledge. Let's share that knowledge.